Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, so we'll just wait one more minute, then we can begin. Navadweep Sachi Mataji, you're there? Yes. Hare Krishna. My apologies to you. I got you confused with one of the students in the Coimbatore class who just got initiated last week. And I just got, I think yes, last week I congratulated you on getting initiated, which, sorry about that.
Oh, okay, no problem, no problem. With the same name, Prabhu?
Yeah, well, similar name, not the same name, but Navadweep was the first part, yeah. Sorry about that.
That's all.
You're probably wondering, what is he talking about?
I see that as a sign.
Acha. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Putale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Mande Ham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Patakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganat Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savahutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vikamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Brishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Manchakalpa Turubhyas Chakripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So my apologies for last week and keeping it to such a short class. So we did not finish verse number 7. But we're up to the paragraph in the purport that begins. The conclusion is that in order to get freed, that's where we are at right now. Please put in the chat or go off of mute if you have any questions from last week that we didn't cover. But I'll start, but please feel free to put in the chat or go off of mute any questions that you might have. So we ended last week in talking about the 10 offenses, right, against the holy name. Do you recall? Remember that? Yeah, we went over them. And remember we said that for each of the aparads, there's a positive aspect to it, right? So to blaspheme the devotees of the Lord, instead of doing that, we should glorify them, as an example. And Prabhupada, continues to discuss the glories of the holy name. In his first sentence, he says, the conclusion is that in order to get freed from the material disease, one must take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. And then he says that ISKCON or this Krishna conscious movement is especially meant for creating an atmosphere in which people can take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So that's an interesting question in and of itself, because as I'm sure many of you know, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he did not put much emphasis on the melodious nature of the kirtan. He was more concerned with the purity of the person who's singing. And there's a lot to be said about how to enter into a mood of seva when one is leading kirtan. And at the same time, we find in ISKCON that it says here, we want to create an atmosphere in which people can take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So we do find that sometimes in preaching, it's not that the kirtan has to be professional, but when it's done nicely, it does attract people, right? I think we probably have had that experience, or even ourselves, when we want to listen to a bhajan or a kirtan, when we're driving in our car or cooking or whatever, we don't put, I think if we were honest, we don't put someone who is tone deaf their kirtan. Right? We usually, I don't know who your favorite bhajan leaders are, but we might pick His Holiness Lokanath Maharaj or Bharahari Prabhu or Indrajumna Maharaj or Srila Prabhupada, or whoever we may find that we really like their kirtans, or that their kirtans inspire us. So there is this balance. We certainly take on board Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's admonition that we don't want to chant for name, fame, and glory. And at the same time, this sentence here, creating an atmosphere in which people can take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, we do find that when the kirtan is done nicely and the kartals are played nicely and the mridanga is played nicely, it does help people to get absorbed. I lived in Vrindavan for many years, and so did now His Holiness Govinda Maharaj. Used to be called Ayodhyapati Prabhu before he got initiated, took sannyas. And he was very careful. And he would literally, in the middle of Mangalarti, he'd go up to a person and take the kartals right out of their hands if they weren't keeping the beat properly. And then he'd hand the kartals to someone else. So it's just a thought that I had when I read this, because we want to create an atmosphere in which people can take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. One must begin with faith, and when this faith is increased by chanting, a person can become a member of the society. We are sending Sankirtana parties all over the world, and they are experiencing that even in the remotest part of the world where there is no knowledge of Krishna, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra attracts thousands of men to our camp. And Prabhupada also said that Lord Chaitanya has placed devotees in every town and village just waiting for the Sankirtan party to come and pick them up. And we have seen this. Some devotees, His Holiness Ritadvaja Swami, he comes from a very remote part of the United States in North Dakota. And, one time a devotee was just going up to North Dakota and met him, and he read Prabhupada's books and became a devotee. So our endeavor is just, Yare Deke Tarikaha Krishna Upadesh, that whoever we meet, wherever you go, whoever you meet, give them a chance to be Krishna conscious. Or what do we say? Wherever you go, whoever you meet, give them a book and something to eat, some prasadam. So, any thoughts or questions on these points about kirtan and attracting people? Okay. So then, but again, if you're taking some time to type something in the chat, don't worry, I'll go right back to it when you enter it. So then Prabhupada talks about, he's talking about the different stages of bhakti, right? There, it begins with, I'm sure you're familiar with this, Ado Shraddha, that in the beginning there's some faith, and then bhajan, then sadhu sangha, one associates with devotees, and in that association, one becomes inspired to do bhajana kriya, literally the work of bhajan kriya, the action of bhajan. And then one's anartas, one's impurities start to come out, anarta nivriti. And as that happens, one gets very one gets very steady, nishta, firm faith, and then gradually ruchi comes, a strong taste for bhakti, and then ashakti, attachment, and then bhava, which we're going to hear about in a minute, which is called prem ankur, or the seed of prema, which is pure love of God, the ninth and last stage. So here, Prabhupada says that if one is sincere, he is initiated, and this stage is called bhajana kriya. One then actually engages in the service of the Lord by regularly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, 16 rounds daily, minimum, and refraining from illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. By bhajana kriya, one attains freedom from the contamination of materialistic life. So it's, by doing, so in other words, by doing the bhajan, by doing the Krishna consciousness, our taste for other things diminishes. And then Prabhupada gives an example that we no longer want to go to restaurants or hotels to taste palatable dishes made with meat and onions, very specific. Or we don't care to smoke or drink tea or coffee. We don't speculate and gamble. And these are all called anartha nivritti, which was one of those 9 stages that we just discussed. So this becomes natural when one does nicely their Krishna consciousness, their hearing and chanting about Krishna. So let's see something in the chat. How the Sankirtan party looks during initial days. How is their preaching? I do mean in the early days of ISKCON? Well, we went through different stages. The early days, we all went in dhoti and kurta and saris in the Western cities and performed Nagar Sankirtan. And we usually distributed BT Back to Godhead magazine in those days. And in the early days, before I joined, devotees would go out 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours a day, chanting with devotees like Vishnu John Swami. And yeah, that was the main. And then Prabhupada introduced book distribution. And because he called that the Brihat Mridanga, right? The greater Mridanga. The Mridanga you can hear for a few blocks, but the Brihat Mridanga of books, they can go all over the place. And he introduced book distribution, and then things changed a bit because we told Prabhupada that we could probably distribute more books if we were wearing Western clothes. So we started wearing Western clothes and distributing books. It was a different thing. And then the devotees in India, actually, at that time, I think things have changed now, but at that time, Prabhupada didn't encourage Nagar Sankirtan in India. He said people will misunderstand. And he said he wanted to go for the more higher class people, and so he introduced life membership there, and the idea of approaching industrialists and more educated people. So according to the time, the place, and the circumstance, Sankirtan may take on a different external manifestation, but it's still the idea of glorifying Krishna, whether it's by giving them a book or by giving them prasadam or by having people chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, or whether it's doing pandal programs or youth preaching or et cetera, just somehow or other, yena kena pakarina manasa Krishna nivesha, somehow or other give people a chance to learn about Krishna and become Krishna's devotees. And yes, okay, so I hope that answers your question. Okay, Vijay Shri Pran Mataji. Excellent. Yes, so in this book was written, I believe, in it was finished in 1975. So by that time there was, of course, Nagar Sankirtan and Harinam, as we call it, and also book distribution was going on in large scales. at this time of Prabhupada writing this book. Okay, is there nothing else in the chat? Okay, so then we can continue. But this is, I hope I made the point clearly enough that we do make promises to refrain from certain activities. And it just becomes 1,000 times easier to do that when we get a taste for Krishna consciousness, when our bhajana kriya is going strong. And then anartha nivritti, cleaning, it almost happens almost automatically by the purity and by associating with Krishna, basically, by associating with Krishna through his holy name, through his shastra, through his deity form, through his holy dham, through the association of his devotees, like that. Okay. And Prabhupada continues that when a person is relieved from unwanted things, he becomes fixed. So you see, he's paraphrasing what the 9 steps. So fixed, does anyone remember the Sanskrit for fixed in the 9 steps? We mentioned it 5 minutes ago. This is Kali Yuga memories. Anyone remember the Sanskrit for being fixed or steady?
Nishta.
Thank you very much. Nishta, yes, thank you. And yes, a few devotees got Nishta. Very good, thank you. So then he says he becomes fixed in executing Krishna activities. Indeed, he becomes attached. Do you remember what attachment is?
Asakti.
Very good, asakti, very good. Yes. To such activities and experiences ecstasy, and that this is called bhava, the preliminary awakening of dormant love of Godhead. Thus, the conditioned soul becomes freed from material existence and loses interest in the bodily conception of life, including material opulence, material knowledge, and material attraction of all variety. As at such a time, one can understand who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is and what Maya is. So I like this word variety, because the material world, the variety in the material world can be very attractive to us, right? You know, there's always something new happening. There's a new cricket score. There's a new election going on. Maybe it's, what is it right now? Bengal and Andhra? I know Bengal for sure. And then there's a new this, and there's a different that, and this is changing, and the latest Bollywood movie comes out, and the latest Android phone comes out, or the latest iPhone comes out, or, you know, whatever, the newest app. The material world will always provide more and more variety. And we have to be quite strong to not get overly sucked into all the different new varieties of the material world, and learn to appreciate and love the varieties in the spiritual world. And someone might say, what do you mean varieties? What varieties are there? You say the same mantra every day. You have 4 books. You go to a library, there's thousands and thousands of books. And you basically read Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Devotion, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and a few other books. There's not much variety in Krishna consciousness. You don't eat everything. You're so strict. No meat, no fish, no eggs, no onions, no garlic, no mushrooms, no, right? So we may even fall into this trap of, well, yeah, there's not so much variety. Like I think we spoke about this before, you know, people would really question Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur for, you know, how can you write a daily newspaper about God consciousness? And he said, no, in the spiritual world, you can write a newspaper at every second, every minute. So there is unlimited actually truly unlimited variety in our relationship with Krishna and in our understanding of the Shastra. We could read the Bhagavatam 10 times and get different realizations every time. I think many of you have had that experience already. I see Rasa Sindhu Prabhu nodding his head. So it's a trick of the illusory energy to attract us to the variety in this world. And it's hard to totally divorce ourselves from it. So again, the real secret of success is to become attracted to the variety of Krishna consciousness. Okay, and in the chat, yes, there's a variety of COVID-19 also. Unfortunately, that is true. And from what I'm reading, I don't know, you would know much better than me, but it seems like India is having some challenges right now with the virus. Is that right? It's going on pretty strong. I know I got a letter from Jai Patakumar yesterday. He said 100 devotees, at least in Mayapur. So yeah, in Vrindavan also. So I don't know about Bangalore.
It's been bad, Prabhu. Over 200,000 getting added every day.
200,000. And that's minimum, because we all know, because we lived in India, that so many villages and places don't get reported, right? And people may die in a village, no one knows if it's COVID or typhoid or malaria, you know, who knows, right? I mean, we know that, and still such a huge percentage of India is in the villages. Yeah. So it's probably higher than we read, right? Likely. That's my experience. Okay. So, although Maya may be present, it cannot disturb a devotee once he attains the bhava stage. This is because the devotee can see the real position of Maya. Maya means forgetfulness of Krishna. And forgetfulness of Krishna and Krishna consciousness stand side by side like light and shadow. So that's a very interesting sentence. So Maya may be present, but it can't disturb someone in bhava. Okay, why is this? Because the devotee can see the real position of Maya. That would be a great blessing, wouldn't it, to see the real position of Maya and the subtleties of Maya, not, you know, the grossness we kind of get, but the subtleties, right? The subtleties. I can give you an example of the subtlety. If it's not that subtle, it's pretty gross. But anyway, for many years I was on the GBC email conference because I deal with conflicts, and a lot of them, you know, leaders have to deal with. And actually, for 9 years, I was on the executive committee of the GBC. Then I had open heart surgery, and I decided I better get off all these conferences for a while I was recuperating. So I wrote the chairman of the GBC the other day saying, you know, I'd like to get back on this one conference that's only for GBCs, only, strictly. And he wrote back saying, well, I don't know if that's, you know, you're not a GBC, so I'm not sure that would go over so well. So immediately my ego got affected. Oh, you know, doesn't he know who I am? Right? Doesn't he know the service that I do? And I tried to catch myself, because that's the subtlety of Maya, to think I'm better than this person, or they didn't give me the respect that I deserve. And, you know, Maya comes and the gross stuff after a while. Okay, so we're not interested in onions and garlic and this and that. But, you know, the pride, the fault finding, the criticism, the different things like that, we really have to catch ourselves and avoid Maya in all of her different allurements, because the devotee is fixed when they can see the real position of Maya. Maya means forgetfulness of Krishna. If one remains in the shadow, he cannot enjoy the facilities offered by light. And if one remains in light, he cannot be disturbed by the darkness of shadow. By taking to Krishna consciousness, one gradually becomes liberated and remains in light. And then Prabhupada quotes this beautiful verse, Krishna Surya Sam Maya Hoya Andhakara Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Mayara Adhikara. And this is the masthead, the top part of Back to Godhead magazine, where it says Godhead is light. This comes from this verse. Krishna is compared to sunshine and Maya is compared to darkness. Wherever there is sunshine, there cannot be darkness. As soon as one takes to Krishna consciousness, the darkness of illusion, the influence of the external energy will immediately vanquish. So that is, and so if you remember, the verse was about jaundice, or not about jaundice specifically, but that Krishna's name, his character, his pastimes, they're very sweet. But we have a jaundice-like condition where we cannot taste sweet things. But by taking sugar cane or every day sugar candy, this sweetness starts to appear. So similarly, we have to use our intelligence to control our mind, to spend time hearing and chanting, and dire, slowly, as it says here, the disease is destroyed at the root. So, questions, comments about verse number 7?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have a question. In these 9 stages that we just discussed, that Prabhupada talks about, for while these are markers, so to speak, to tell you where you are in your stage of progress, but oftentimes probably the first 4 or 5 stages, you're going between them constantly. Yes, just when you think you have progressed, then something comes up and then you're back again, like 3 steps forward, 4 steps back.
Right.
That happens constantly. So should we even try to understand whether we're progressing or just stay focused on the activities, the chanting, and not worry about are we progressing or not?
Well, great question. Thank you for that. I think we generally oscillate between Bhajana Kriya and Anartha Nivritti.
Yes.
Because the Doshrada, okay, that's taken care of. We had a little faith, and therefore we started associating with ISKCON, right? And obtained Sadhu Sangha. And at least for people with a name like yours, means you have started the Bhajana Kriya because you're initiated, right? But what we oscillate between is anishtita sadhana and nishta, so, unsteady and steady. And we may be steady for some time, and then I know for myself, I may be steady for some time, then I have to stay up late for some reason, and then it throws things off, and like that. So I think for devotees, these 9 steps are nice to meditate on. Just even, for me, I remember when I first read them years and years ago, it gave me faith, this is like a scientific process. It's not just somebody just made this stuff up. It's Rupa Goswami presents it so nicely. And I also heard a class by His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, and this was inspiring for me because, and hopefully you'll find this inspiring for all of you. He said that these stages, especially Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, they can take a long time. After you get past Nishta, he said it goes quite quickly. Because otherwise we're thinking, my God, it's taken me 20 years to go into a little Anartha Nivritti. And there's like 6 more stages. Forget it. So I appreciated that. That was nice. So we should in an ideal world, we should feel some progress every day. You know, it might be, you know, the size of a mustard seed, but trying to go in the right direction. And I use the word trying because it's up to Krishna ultimately how fast we go or how slow we go, but we do our best by trying to set aside time for chanting japa nicely, setting aside time to read Srila Prabhupada's books. Well, let me read you something about that I just saw the other day. Give me a second to find it. So listen to this. This is from a room conversation Srila Prabhupada had in 1974. Just see, you are not reading my books. You have to read my books and you have to study and learn my books, just like a lawyer learns the law books. You must know everything, chapter and verse. If you do not know, how will you teach these men unless you know my books? Every day you have to read my books. Do you know that every day, even I read my own books? Do you know why I read my books? I read my books every day because even I learn something new when I read them. Do you know why I learn something new when I read my books? Because these books are not my books. I did not write these books. Every morning when I sit here to write my books, Krishna comes personally and he dictates to me what to write. I simply take dictation from Krishna and I write these books. Therefore, when I read them, even I learn something. Isn't that nice? So we just want to, you know, I don't know if every day we have to think, okay, let's see, how, you know, I'm still on Bhajana Kriya. No, you know, we may not have to meditate on these 9 stages every day, but it's good to know that we're doing our Bhajana Kriya and slowly our anarthas are going away. When asked, how do you know if you're making advancement, one answer Prabhupada gave was that the material fever is going down. In other words, the anartha nivritti is working. So that's, does that help, Mataji? Okay. We have 2 more here. Sarva Pavana Nityananda Prabhu and Abhaya. Maya does not affect devotees in Bhava stage. Bharat Maharaj fell down in the stage of how to understand. It was an arrangement of Krishna to ultimately to glorify him. Let me just find the where were we? Oh, yeah, Maya cannot disturb the, yeah. So then if both are true, then the explanation must be that Krishna had arranged, because obviously Krishna arranged, because how many deer remember their previous lives? Right? So he was obviously very, very special devotee, and Krishna, I mean, you know, he has a number of chapters in the Bhagavatam. That's how special he was. But we could also look it up sometime, Bharata and Bhava, and see what Prabhupada says. Let's see if I can find. Prabhupada writes in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, King Bharata was also a pure devotee, and at an early stage, he left his household life, his beautiful devoted wife, his sons, friends, and kingdom, just as if they were stool. This is typical of a person who has developed bhava in the course of devotional service. Such a devotee always thinks of himself as the most wretched, and his only satisfaction is in thinking that someday or other Krishna will favor him with bhakti. So that's there. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else in Prabhupada's books about it. Nope, that's all I could find in a quick search on database. So Krishna arranged it. That will be the answer for that one ultimately. Murari Madhava Prabhu. The more one advances in Krishna consciousness in 9 stages, naturally that individual devotee becomes less interested in material enjoyment, materially less productive in work efficiencies, and think of a disassociation of material world and activities. My question, should we balance both spiritual life and material life, or should we focus on moving through these stages? I had another devotee ask a similar question. So Prabhupada gives the example of the, and Rupa Goswami gives the example, of the woman who is married, but she has a lover on the side, a paramour. And so she doesn't want her husband to find out. So she does her household chores even better, even more meticulously than normal. But in her mind, she's always thinking about her lover and when she can reunite with him. So similarly, we should be better than the materialists at work. We should be more productive. We should be, we can be at least super productive in everyday life, but our heart is remembering Krishna. That's where our real heart is at. But we could be super experts. Look at Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right? He was like a Paka magistrate. Right? And he was the he was a DM, right, in Puri, and had 12, whatever. It's more than he had a dozen children, and he had all these responsibilities, and he would write all these books about Krishna. Right, so it is a misunderstanding that if we get absorbed in Krishna consciousness, we're going to be less productive at work. We should be more productive at work. We should be the best employee if it's in the whole building. There's not a contradiction. One would say, well, but we have less time. That may be because we've spent time on our sadhana, but people waste so much time, right? Going to this place and that place. So we're not wasting our time like they do. So we can be highly, highly productive and be very Krishna conscious. So I don't think we should think that there's a dichotomy there, that it's either or. It's both. Now, Murari Madhava, I'm not chastising you right now. Maybe you have a different opinion. I'd like to, oh, well, you just wrote it's a convincing answer. Yes. I mean, I'm not great at my work, I guess, but I have right now, I may retire soon, but I have a job that takes, at least 8 hours a day. Working for the government in America, and then I'm it's almost 9 o'clock at night for me here, and giving class sometimes in the mornings also, and tomorrow is the weekend in America. We get Saturday and Sunday off, and I have a class in Russia at 6 in the morning, and then Coimbatore at 9:30, and then kirtan in the temple in the evening, and then the next day, Sunday, a meeting with all the Bhakti True Maharaj's disciples, and then some GBC matters, and then Bhakti Vaibhava class. So we keep ourselves busy. I'm sure you're all very busy. I'm not trying to glorify myself. It's funny because on Monday, when we go back to work, and everyone, I say, the question you always ask is, "How's your weekend?" And everyone says, "Oh, relax. Now I feel so much relaxed." And I'm thinking, I'm so much busier on my weekends than my weekdays. I'm going to work to relax. There's so much going on in Krishna consciousness on the weekends. So, but having said that, Murari Madhava Prabhu, we do need to also keep a balanced life, and we need to preserve the best time of the day for chanting Hare Krishna and reading the Bhagavatam and taking care of our families, not neglecting our spouses and our children. Because remember, our children, Prabhupada once said that the children of our children will be able to light fire by mantra. They'll be so powerful. So we want to give our children Krishna consciousness, love, affection, make them, we don't want them, if we neglect our children as they're growing up, they're going to be like, I don't want my kids to be devotees, because I'm going to, you know what I mean? We have to be, Prabhupada once told Burijan Prabhu, was one of the first devotees to live outside of the temple, because in those days, even grihastas lived in the ashram sometimes. And Prabhupada told him something that we don't hear too often. He said, your first service is to your family, then other ISKCON services. That's what he actually told Burijan Prabhu. Now, he might have told other people something different, but the point is, and I want to say this to Murari Madhava Prabhu. We do have intense lives in one sense. We want to chant, we want to do our sadhana. Many of us have jobs or businesses, and then we have, our family responsibilities. And sometimes it's a lot to juggle, but Krishna will help us. And we have to remain sattvic and not just running from pillar to post. Prabhupada got so much done, but he never got the impression that he was passionate, like, he was just very, look what he got accomplished. Time magazine listed him as one of the best examples, right, of someone who was successful after 50 years of age. Right. So I hope that answers your question, Prabhuji. Okay, anything else on this? Okay, should we move on then to verse number 8? Now, we are
I have a question on Maya.
Are you in Maya right now?
Yes.
Please, Prabhu.
Yeah, so Prabhu, certainly I'm not at the bhava stage, and so obviously Maya does disturb at least me. I'll not talk for anybody else. And as it says, this is because the devotee can see the real position of Maya. So let's say theoretically or academically, because we have heard so many classes, read so many times, the real position of Maya. But, we are so fearful, I would say, at times as devotees of the situation of Maya. When we are in Maya, we're even scared to turn left or right, because you always hear that you don't know when Maya will grab you. And that also makes us so stiff towards our life. And many times, we always, wear a very grumpy look on our face because we are devotees, not really enjoying life. So how do we adopt this real position of Maya in our day-to-day living?
Okay, a few things about that. I'm just writing down these things so I remember to say them all. Vyasadeva, in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, he had this, I don't know if this is what Prabhupada, I sometimes think this sentence Prabhupada's referring to that, because Vyasadeva got the full understanding of how Maya is behind Krishna and cannot affect Krishna or the person who is Krishna conscious. Okay, so we shouldn't be stiff. This and Rupa Goswami, we're reading Rupa Goswami's book here, and he poses here, or he addresses this question that when we try to avoid Maya or try to renounce this world, we can become, you use the word stiff, Prabhu, that we can become austere and stiff and kind of rigid and kind of mean even sometimes, right? And so the question is, how do we perform vairagya? How do we perform renunciation without the hardening of the heart? And I think we discussed this before, but it's worth, since you asked the question, it's worth repeating. And that is the verse Anashak Tasya Vishayan Yartaham Upayunjita Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagya Uchate. That we don't reject the world, we don't exactly reject Maya, we use the world in Krishna's service. And so we, rather than becoming stiff, we should be becoming soft-hearted if we want to be free from Maya. The opposite, we just have to become soft-hearted, not towards Maya, but soft-hearted towards Krishna. And remember him in a loving mood. So it's actually, so we should be very, I like the word soft. We should be very, we shouldn't be stiff. We should be practicing bhakti, devotion. That's what's going to protect us from Maya. You know, not all the staunchness in the world. How does that sound, Prabhu?
So I understand what you're saying, but practically, how do we see when you're practicing Krishna consciousness, when we are dealing with devotees, when we're in temple services? Yes, we are somewhere, because as you said, the atmosphere is there, so we kind of start, following it. But when we are doing our material duties, jobs, family life, that is where that conflict or the stiffness comes in typically. That's why I said we stop living, but we are just kind of surviving the material life.
Yeah, right. I get that. Yeah. Well, for each person, it's a little different. But for me, I try to be kind to everyone I meet during my work life, because most of them know I'm a devotee. So I feel that I need to, set a good example by being a nice person. Not that I want to go out and drinking with them at the bars at night, or like that, or go to McDonald's with them, or whatever, but so, and maybe this is easier in America than in India, I don't know, but I find that my coworkers, they're sensitive to the fact that I'm a devotee. And so they, if there is, like, let's say, food, they all know that basically if they bring food to the work, if we get together, I'll have fruit. So they'll always make sure that they bring some fruit, right? Or, like that. So but at the same time, Rasa Sindhu, I think you're making a good point that we do have to see through the eyes of Shastra. And there may be some things in this world that we really, since we know we might be a little attracted to it, we do have to push it away a little bit as well. So some stiffness may be understood and appreciated. But kind-heartedness and devotion, the difference between Jiva Dvaya and Vaishnava Seva. So when we're at, like you're saying, at the temple, we really want to serve the devotees, and then we're outside, try to find a way to be compassionate to non-devotees. Just like today, one of my co-workers, she's in her 3rd month of suffering from COVID. Yeah, really, she just had a really bad doubt. So today I drove to her house and brought her a big container of prasad, of dal. And so she wrote me afterwards saying, "Oh, I'm taking the dal, it's wonderful." And so for me, oh, she's taking prasadam. She's like, she's so fortunate like that. So, but so, yeah, we shouldn't swing the pendulum in either direction. Some rejection is there, but too much, yeah, it's no fun being a devotee if we're totally stiff, right? Is that all right, Prabhu?
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes?
I have one more question in connection with the Maya Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
In large scheme of things, there is definitely meaning for the creation of each and everything. But when it comes to Maya Prabhu, I don't understand what for Bhagavan is created Maya. When it derives me from devotion, when it doesn't allow me spiritually progress, then what is the purpose of creation of Maya Prabhu?
That's a great question. We have our independence, minute independence. We're not fully independent, right? I can't fly in the sky or snap my fingers and become a billionaire or whatever. But we have minute, and bhakti or love is based on that free will. Because you can't really force someone to love you. You can force someone to do different things, but it's not really love. It's more like force, right? So it's kind of, Prabhupada gave the example of a child is, how does this work? I won't use that example. That's not a very good example. But so Maya is there because we have chosen not to serve Krishna, and we want to enjoy independently of him and try to control the world, even though it's very hard to do that, impossible in some ways. So Krishna gives us a place where we can live out that illusion. And at the same time, he makes different arrangements at different time, place, and circumstances to give us the opportunity to return to him, sending his pure devotees, incarnating himself, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. We will study that verse in the Bhagavad Gita. So Maya is here because we want her to be here. And Krishna there fulfills our desire because we have that free will. That's the simple example, the simple explanation. And let's see what's in the chat here. Maya is mainly condemned most of the cases, but Maya is also created by Krishna, so his kids are taken care well. Things which are made for our development, if we start misusing them, it looks like it's, yeah, so that's a nice thing. Maya can also mean mercy in the sense that it is Krishna's kindness that he says, okay, so you don't want to be with me, or here's this other existence you can have. And also, actually, this is a good connection with Rasa Sindhu Prabhu's question. If there wasn't Maya, we might just be kind of like, okay, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, and not be very, it seems like everything's okay. Schnick, schnick, giddy, giddy, ray, ray. Right. But Maya is strong enough that we really need to take shelter. And, every now and then Maya affects us, right? To the effect that we're saying, okay, Krishna, please, I surrender. Okay, please forgive me. Oh my gosh, I really want to serve you. I really want to serve you. So Maya acts in that way sometimes to help us choose more strongly Krishna, especially as we get the realization of how powerful Maya is and how weak we are. She is merciful because she really encourages us to take true shelter of Krishna. Okay, so let's go on to the 8th verse. And the 8th verse, so what we did up for 1 through 7, and we're going to study this much more in detail in Nectar of Devotion. Okay, you're welcome, Amal. Which I believe will be our next book, Nectar of Devotion, which will start very soon. So you'll have to have copies of the Nectar of Devotion, either electronically or physically. So there's 3 basic stages of bhakti: sadhana, bhava, and prema. And sadhana has 2 stages: vaidhi, which is what we've been studying up till today, the first 7 verses. Then raganuga, which is the 8th verse. And 9, 10, and 11 basically deal with bhava and prema. Okay, so there's only 1 verse about raganuga bhakti. And raganuga bhakti is, there's a lot of details to it, and we'll try to make it as understandable as possible in the remaining 34 minutes, and we may have to, let's see if we finish this whole verse today or not. Okay, so the essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Braja, Goloka, Vrindavan, Dhama, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. So the first part of this purport is pretty straightforward. It's about the mind. Prabhupada writes, since the mind may be one's enemy or one's friend, one has to train the mind to become his friend. The Krishna conscious movement is especially meant for training the mind to be always engaged in Krishna's business. The mind contains hundreds and thousands of impressions, not only of this life, but also of many, many lives of the past. These impressions sometimes come in contact with one another and produce contradictory pictures. And Prabhupada gives the example that you may see, you have seen gold and you have seen a mountain, but then you dream about golden mountains. Right? We have so many different impressions in our mind called samskars, and samskars from previous lives are called purva samskars. In this way, the mind's function can be dangerous for a conditioned soul. Students of psychology are aware of the mind's various psychological changes. And Prabhupada quotes the verse, yam yam vapi swaram bhavam, tyadyat yante kalevaram, tam tam evaiti kuntaya sadatad bhava bhavita. Whatever state of mind one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. At the time of death, the mind and intelligence of a living entity create the subtle form of a certain type of body for the next life. If the mind suddenly thinks of something not very congenial, one has to take a corresponding birth in his next life. Now, that could be a scary sentence that we just read. One time Prabhupada said that if you've been serving Lord Chaitanya in your life, then even if you're forgetting him at the time of death, he will force himself into your consciousness. So that's reassuring. On the other hand, if one can think of Krishna at the time of death, he can be transferred to the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. This process of transmigration is very subtle. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami advises devotees to train their minds in order that they will be unable to remember anything other than Krishna. Similarly, the tongue should be trained to speak only of Krishna and taste only Krishna prasadam. So if you're not doing that, please make that endeavor to only take Krishna prasadam. And we talked about this before, I believe, that there may be times when you're at a business meeting and you can only order a salad and you can only offer it in your mind, but that may be there, or say Sarirada Vijajal in some situation, but somehow or other we only take we only eat Krishna Prasadam. That should be one of our brats, one of our vows, to only take Krishna Prasadam. Srila Rupa Goswami further advises, Tishtan Braje, one should live in Vrindavan or any part of Brajabhumi. Brajabhumi is the land of Vrindavan, or the land of Vrindavan is supposed to be 84 kroshas in area. 1 krosha equals 2 square miles. When one makes Vrindavan his residence, he should take shelter of an advanced devotee there. In this way, one should always think of Krishna and his pastimes. So now when he starts talking about Vrindavan, now we're really starting to talk about Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So this verse is a very important verse in understanding Raganuga Bhakti. So let me explain one thing before we get into that. So the Ragatmika devotees, not Raganuga, Ragatmika, they are the eternal residents of Vrindavan. Nanda Maharaj, Jashoda, Lord Srimati Radharani, Vishaka, etc., etc., etc. And so they are called Ragatmika. They are, the word raga has different meanings. One is, you could say is colored, right? So if my glasses are have a red tint to them, everything I'm going to see will be red, right? So that example is there for the Ragatmika, but everywhere their color is all Krishna. And we know that from the residents of Vrindavan are like that. So Raganuga is to follow in the footsteps of the Ragatmikas. And that's what is being referred to in the verse when it says, one should reside in Braja and serve Krishna under the guidance of his devotees. That means the Ragatmikas. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord, beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. So Raganuga is to anuga, follow the Ragatmikas, those who have Rag. So this is an important verse. A devotee should always reside in the transcendental realm of Braja and always engage in Krishna, Smaran, Janam, Kasya, Preshtam, the remembrance of Sri Krishna and his beloved associates. By following in his footsteps, that's Raganuga, of such associates, of the Ragatmikas, and by entering their eternal guidance, one can acquire an intense desire to serve the personality of Godhead. So, in another place in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada translates it a little differently. I think you'll find this encouraging. A devotee should always think of Krishna within himself, and one should choose a very dear devotee who is a servitor of Krishna in Vrindavan. Okay, that we covered. One should constantly engage in topics about that servitor and his or her loving relationship to Krishna, and one should live in Vrindavan. Now, this sentence Prabhupada didn't have in Nectar of Instruction. However, if one is physically unable to go to Vrindavan, he should mentally live there. Okay, so we can go to Vrindavan in our mind. And it's not a bad idea, by the way, to have pictures of Vrindavan or Mayapur in your house and, meditate on the holy Dham like that. So then there's one other really important verse about Raganuga, and that's the next verse, Seva Sadhaka Rupena, Siddha Rupena Chaturhi. That verse, in the transcendental realm of Braja, one should serve the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna with a particular feeling to that of his associates. So that's that idea. When you're very advanced, you're meditating on one of the residents of Vrindavan and their feelings for Krishna. One should place himself under the direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna and should follow in his footsteps. This method is applicable both in the stage of sadhana, which is our stage, and sadhya, the perfect stage. So a little bit on this verse, and I know I'm getting a little into some detail, but that's okay. Okay, so you understand the first practice of Raganuga Bhakti is to meditate on the relationship of service between Krishna and one of his dear Brajvasis. The specific relationship and devotee that we meditate upon depends on our aspirations. For example, one who has the inclination for conjugal affection, they may meditate on the specific mood or service of a gopi towards Krishna. And one in parental affection might meditate on the mood and service of Mother Yashoda. So then this verse, Seva Sadhaka Rupena, is actually really important. So the verse that we just read, that told us to always think of Krishna, of an eternal servant of Krishna. Now this verse is telling us how to think of that Brijvasi and absorb ourselves in their service. And what this verse is saying is that we actually, the residents of Vrindavan, actually have two manifestations, sadhakas and siddhas. So for example, Rupa Goswami is Rupa Goswami and Lord Chaitanya's Leela, right? And in Krishna Leela, he's Rupa Manjari, one of the great Ragatmika devotees. So this is important to understand. So Rupa Goswami would act like you and me in the sense that he would, chant his rounds and he'd pay obeisances and he'd do that. Internally, he's totally absorbed in Radha and Krishna's pastimes as Rupa Manjari. So you'll see, I don't know if you've ever seen this in Vrindavan, but sometimes people don't follow this verse. And therefore they think that they should externally act, follow in the footsteps of Vrindavan. So sometimes you see men dressed as gopis in Vrindavan and things like that. That's getting this wrong. So this verse is saying, Seva Sadhaka Rupena, that in our sadhaka stage, we follow in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami, chanting Hare Krishna, taking prasadam, etc., etc. But Siddha Rupena Chaturhi, internally, when we are in the stage of Raganuga Bhakti, our heart's on fire, following in the footsteps of Krishna's devotees. But externally, Prabhupada uses the word externally, we remain acting like a neophyte. So let me just continue a little bit more before I take questions. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented as follows: one who has not yet developed interest in Krishna consciousness should give up all material motives and train his mind by following the progressive regulated principles, chanting, remembering Krishna. In this way, after developing a taste for such things, one should try to live in Vrindavan and pass his time constantly remembering Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, and qualities under the direction and protection. So he's talking about the two stages, Vaidhi and then Raganuga. Then Prabhupada, the next paragraph, you can just read it sometime. It just talks about the different stages leading up to the perfection. But I want to focus on the next one statement in the next paragraph, which could be confusing. Chaitanya Charitamrita advises that those who are neophytes to give up all kinds of motivated desires and simply engage in regulated, that word would be Vaidhi, regulated devotional service of the Lord, the first 7 verses of the book we're studying now, according to the directions of scriptures. In this way, a neophyte can gradually develop attachment for Krishna's name, fame, form, qualities, and so forth. When one has developed such attachment, he can spontaneously serve the lotus feet of Krishna, even without following the regulated principles. This stage is called Raga Bhakti, or devotional service in spontaneous love. Okay, so what does that mean? Even without following the regulated principles? Because you might get confused. That doesn't mean we start going, we start, having a little wine with our meals, or, gambling on the cricket match, or, you know, eating all kinds of unmentionable things. No, what it means is the impetus to do our bhakti has changed. It's no longer we're doing our bhakti because we took vows to our spiritual master and we promised, and these are the rules that we have to follow. No, we have a spontaneous desire for Krishna. So the regulated principles, they happen automatically without even having to worry about them. That's what it means here. It's not the reason we do our bhakti anymore. It's now the rag has become so strong that we just spontaneously want to serve Krishna. So this is the technical aspect of spontaneous bhakti or raganuga. Now, the practical for us is that as our jaundice condition goes away, we just love doing devotional service. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings that when I hear the mridanga, my heart jumps for joy. Right? And we're so, you know, we're going to the temple, we know there's going to be a kirtan there, and we are so enthusiastic to go there. Right? Or, you know, Bhakti Shastri classes going on a early Saturday morning. And even though it's Vraj Vihari Das, who's not such a great speaker, I just can't wait to hear about Krishna. Right? So we do, at least we can try to practice that level of spontaneity now, of just of being enthusiastic for Krishna consciousness. You know, we wake up in the morning and we call out, you know, what we're trained to do. I think we spoke about this before. We call out the name of our deities, our worshipful deities, and we pay obeisances to our spiritual master. And we think, oh, right, another day of Krishna consciousness. Hari Bol. Wonderful. Like that. So that's how we can practice. We may not be following yet in the footsteps of a beloved member of Vrindavan, but we can develop that by having that kind of spontaneity in our bhakti. Okay, so I spoke a lot just now, and it may be a little complicated. Any questions? Let's see what's in the chat. Oh, just thank you, Prabhuji. Questions or comments about this?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam.
Yes, yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, maybe one personal question. Please don't apologize even before asking the question. Prabhu, you've lived in Vrindavan for 22, 23 years. How much of influence that has done for you personally, and what all can we learn as lessons from that? Is there a serious thing that we all have to go and live in Vrindavan at some point in time to practice even more better?
No, that's why if you remember, that's why I really wanted to be sure that I read this other translation of that verse. Where is it? However, if one is physically unable to go to Vrindavan, he should mentally live there. So a devotee, in terms of residence, a devotee is mainly concerned about their Prabhu Datta Desh, Prabhupada calls it, right? The place given to them by the spiritual master for doing service. And usually that means where we're living right now, right? Unless your spiritual master said, I want you to go to Mayapur, move to Mayapur or whatever. But our Prabhu Datta Desh is our place to help others become Krishna conscious. And take care of our family, etc., other things like that. But we can still develop a desire in our heart that, my dear Lord, I really want to appreciate the holy dhams. I really want to appreciate Braj and Mayapur and Jagannath Puri, especially those three. Right? I mean, there's so many, holy places in India, but for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, those three are the most important. And of course, there's the 108 places that Lord Chaitanya visited in South India that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, established his footprints there. So we also can try to take advantage of yatras or vacation time. When we have chuti, we, instead of going to Mahabalipuram, we go to Jagannath Puri or whatever, right? Or Goa or whatever, is the, like that. And we do try, we try to visit the holy dhams, especially we're so fortunate you're living in India. The devotees in the West, they really have to take huge expense. And even right now they can't go because there's no tourist visas, right? Huge expense to, fly from all over the world there. And the devotees in South America especially, they really struggle because they don't have so much money. And flights are expensive for them. And the flights are very long, at least a 24-hour endeavor because you have to change airplanes and things like that. So, but that doesn't mean that dhams are not powerful. It's just that, we want to reside where our spiritual master wants us to reside. Okay, so I went to Vrindavan, but I think it's good to note, I went to Vrindavan because I had service there. And that's why I went to Vrindavan, not really to kind of enjoy Vrindavan, but I had service there. I went there to assist Burijan Prabhu in the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education. Then I ended up becoming the director of it and teaching there. And my wife was teaching at the Gurukul. So that's important also. One can go to the dhams either for a short visit to charge our batteries, because we have service, or in older age we may be able to retire in the dhams. And if we don't have the ability or the mentality to preach a lot, we can go there and study Shastra and chant Hare Krishna and perfect our lives. But it's not very good to go to Vrindavan and hang out, as we say in America, without any service and without and just be there a long time, talking prajalpa and just going to the restaurants, like that. Of course, you get purified, especially in Mayapur, because in Mayapur there's no offenses, right? It's Lord Chaitanya's place. So I think they say in Mayapur, even when you're taking rest, you're paying obeisances to the dham and making advancement, right? Like that. So we're fortunate to have the dhams. We're fortunate enough to have a Prabhu Datta Desh. We're just fortunate all around. But I mean, I certainly, I was benefited by staying there. It was 21 years. But I'd say the best benefit was the sadhu sangha, that so many senior devotees would come and visit Vrindavan, and I got their association. And for me, that was the most important part. And then we have that verse, right? Yes, Yasyatmi buddhi kunape tridatuke swadi kalatradishu bhoma ijati yatirtha buddhi salile nakarija. That's the one. Yeah, to go to a tirtha, a holy place, only to take bath, but not associate with the great devotees there. Yeah. By the way, I'm glad to see, at least from the news in America, I'm glad to see none of you are at Kumbh Mela right now. They say it's like, going to be like a super COVID spreader. Yeah. So we go to the holy dhams, especially, we want to go there and get good association. Is that all right, Achyuta? Does that answer your question?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, Prabhu, should we plan our retirement in holy dhams?
I would do that in consultation with senior devotees, because I think for sure we should plan to spend some more time in the holy dhams. But we may be also in retirement, we may be free to do more seva. And we may, we have all that wisdom, and we should use that wisdom of old age to share Krishna consciousness with others. In the first canto of the Bhagavatam, and this was before Prabhupada came to America, right? He wrote the first canto. He does say that Vanaprasthas can go and study. He actually says, study the 6 Goswami literature in Vrindavan. So it would depend on our nature and our, because you can do service in the dhams. It's not just there's tons of preaching to be done in Mayapur. There's how many when there's no COVID, how many guests come every day, right? Mm-hmm. And one could live in Vrindavan and still go to Aligarh and Agra and here and there and do some outreach programs, and then come back to Vrindavan. So yeah, but the main point, Rasa Sindhu, is yes, we should go there. We can go there as long as we have service. The service may be hearing and chanting. Nothing wrong with that, but not to just have a lot of parathas and with achar and dahi, and because you get good parathas in Vrindavan. Probably better than South India.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
We hear this phrase being used repeatedly, Guru Datta Desha. Right now we are discussing when we settle down in Vrindavan or Mayapur. How would, philosophically, spiritually, how would a Guru Datta Desha compare with a holy dham?
Guru Datta Desha or Prabhu Datta Desha. Our focus is to please our spiritual master, right? And Srila Prabhupada. That's we understand that's Guru Krishna Prasade Bhai Bhakti Lata Beach, right? And in general, Vaishnavas, Tandara Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas. Janame Janame Hoy Eavilas. So that's why I said we just sit down with maybe it's our spiritual master, maybe it's with other trusted Vaishnavas. We talk about our life and where we're at right now, and we come up with a plan of how we can, and it might be very different. Prem Datta Chaitanya Prabhu may be very different than Pranavala Prabhu. We're individuals, and sometimes even the spiritual master gives different devotees different instructions. Right? So it is an individual thing. So if we're doing service in our Prabhu Datta Desh, that's wonderful. If we have the blessings to be at least sometimes in the holy dham, that's wonderful. The main point about the holy dhams, like I know I'm starting to sound like a repeated broken record, but it's to take advantage of the holy dhams. We really, when we go to the whole, let's say we're going for 3 days to Puri, we make a plan. Okay, we're going to get up early in the morning. We're going to chant extra rounds. We're going to go see Tota Gopinath every day. We'll go see Lord Jagannath every day, right? We'll take Jagannath Mahaprasadam twice a day. Whatever it is, we make a plan so that we really have we're fixed in our goal, and not just like, okay, well, I'm here at the Holy Dham. What's going on? Okay, well, maybe we'll go shopping at Loy Bazaar and prasadam at MVT, and like that. No, nothing wrong with taking prasadam at MVT. Nothing wrong with going shopping at Loy Bazaar, but we actually have a plan. Then we don't just do whatever. So similarly, especially as we get to retirement age, we need a plan how to take advantage of that retirement in the best way possible. And of course, we have our plans and Krishna has his plans. I mean, my plan is to focus on that project that we're building at Govardhan Hill. It's an ISKCON project. I think I told you about it, right? It's a retreat center at Govardhan, about a 1-minute walk to Govardhan Hill, and it has it holds 240 devotees, and there's 6 bhajan kutirs in the back of the property. No computer and no phone allowed there. Oops, just bhajan. And then there's classrooms. There'll be 3 different possibilities for taking prasadam, and yeah, so the construction is about 70% done, and we hope to open it in Kartik, but who knows with COVID what's going to be happening, right? So that's my hope, is to help run that center there. It's an ISKCON property. Beautiful place. There'll be gardens there, and what we'll do is because this class is going to take some time, so we'll have a week of our classes at Vrindavan and Govardhan. Okay.
When can we start booking for the yatra, Prabhuji?
Probably quite soon. I think it'll be set up in Kartik. Our hope is to. Oh, I said that already, right? We hope to open in Kartik, COVID permitting. The construction was slowed down a little during COVID, as you can imagine. And there's still, I think, some more funds to be raised, but a good chunk of the money is there. His Holiness, it's a kind of a project of His Holiness Sachinanda Maharaj and Burijan Prabhu. We've been having retreats at Govardhan since 2001, but we always wanted our own place. So if you know Govardhan, it's the property is near Jatipur, in between Govardhan town and Jatipur, between those two. So the other side from the other ISKCON property. Okay, I think it's so nice. We could talk about the Holy Dham forever. But our time is almost up for today. If you please look at this purport carefully, we can start with any questions next week. And I'm going to ask you to read the remaining 3 verses for next week. And so we either will finish Nectar of Instruction this next week or the week after that. Let's see how it goes. And then we will start Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion. TK?
Can I make a personal request?
Yes, Prabhu.
That may take a few minutes of your time. We have His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj's Vyasa Puja coming up just a few days from now.
Acha.
Can I request you to speak a few words about him, your personal experiences with him?
Now or then?
Well, if you can do it then.
But you mean now, Prabhu, is that what you mean?
Well, if you can do it on the Vyasa Puja day, there's nothing like it. We can schedule you. The event will be in the evening. Oh, of course, we could also schedule a special class in the morning around the same time. Would that suit you?
I'm not a class. I can just speak a little bit. There's so many devotees want to speak about Maharaj. What day is this, Prabhu?
The coming Ekadashi, which is 23rd.
23rd. So, and it's in the evening of the 23rd. So, well, that's our regular class time, right? Oh, no. That's, no, it's not a regular class time. 23rd
It's on 17th April.
According to your 23rd, yes, but our 23rd, it's.
So it's morning
Thursday.
23rd for me. Evening for you, yes? What time does it start?
Prabhu, we start the event by 7 p.m. our time.
7 p.m., which is 9:30 for me.
Morning.
Okay, I put it on my schedule. You just tell me, you just, somebody send me more details. But I'd be more than happy to glorify Jai Prataka Maharaj. Yeah. But I'll only speak for a few minutes. I do want to hear other people glorify Maharaj. Is that all right, Varda Krishna Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
All right. So Achyuta Prabhu will probably send me the more of the information, or someone else. So thank you.
Okay,
you.
Prabhu.
Very kind of you, Prabhu. We'll look forward to hearing from you.
Okay. So all Prabhus, Matajis, please accept my humble obeisances. Pancha kalpa tarubhyascha, kripa sindhuvescha, patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
sir.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavad, Prabhu.
Dhanavad Pranam.
Krishna, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for attending today's session. Maybe I'll request His Grace Premdata Chaitanya Prabhu to provide some more details on the upcoming test exam. We're all getting into the test exam fever. Unlike the government of Karnataka or the government of India also, some of these boards have cancelled 10th standard and 12th grade exams have been postponed. We're hoping we can get some kind of learning from that, Premdata Prabhu.
I hope the same, Prabhu. I'm the same boat.
So Prabhu, before you can talk of the upcoming exam, a lot of students had questions on the grading yesterday, which I shared with everyone.
Yeah, sure.
So people wanted to know what a grade B means or what a C means, and they also want to know where they probably went wrong and how we can share that feedback with them. So if you can talk.
So what we can do is actually those devotees who have who wants the feedback, because this evaluation is done by external devotees, in the sense devotees who are not associated with our temple. So they are US devotees have done this, so who are the part of this Prabhu's team. So those devotees who want a little more clarification, you can send an email to same that Bhakti Shastri. I will send that this thing bhaktishastri.sngm@gmail.com. Please send your name and what you are looking at. I will forward to the team and I'll get back to you with the feedback. But my understanding, what I have looked at, this thing is that A means that all the questions were as per the purports of Prabhupada, because homework assignments were primarily focused on the goal that everybody reads the purports and give the answers. So they were primarily focused on the purports of Prabhupada, not mentioning anything else. And as you see, the assignments were primarily word to word from the purports. So, for example, one question it was like, what are the different types of devotees? There are 3 types of devotees, how we should deal with them. And so if somebody has written 3 kinds of devotees are Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttamadhikari, that's fine. But then how to deal with them is not mentioned, then you lose, some marks in that or something like that. And sometimes fill in the blanks also are expected to be word by word from the purport. So when we would have written something else which is not in line of word by word, doesn't mean that it has to be exactly spelling wise same, but at least taking the essence. So sometimes what happened, based on our understanding, we would write some sentence or something, so which may not be actually in line with the purports. There it has been that's what the guidelines I have received from the evaluators. So if you still have particular this thing, please send an email to bhaktishastri.sngm@gmail.com, specifically with your roll number, name, and which verse you have thing, then we'll get the feedback from that particular. Okay.
If
Is
you
that
could share
okay?
the email ID on the group, student group, it'll be helpful.
Sorry, I didn't get you, Prabhu. What is that?
If you can share the email ID on the
I
student
will do
group.
that, Prabhu.
Yeah,
I'll
so
do
there are
that.
no spelling mistakes.
Sure, sure. I'll do that. So
Hare
I
Krishna
was,
Prabhu.
yeah.
It will be good if we can just share the answers with everyone so that it becomes easier for everyone to evaluate what exactly is expected on those answers. And, do
Maybe
you
we can
think?
start this practice from next module, because now I don't know to get from that team. I'm not sure, because they are already running one more Bhakti Shastri course, to be honest.
Okay.
They already have 60, 65 devotees there too, to be honest. To get their time, but maybe from next module onwards, maybe we can request them that they keep answers, so that, or we can arrange, someone of us arranges the assignment,
Right.
answers, work on that with them and get the answers, and then publish it every time once the week is over,
Yeah.
or something like that, and once everybody has submitted. So we can work on that from next module. I don't know, this hardly 2 shlokas are left, so now something introducing something new, I don't know. Requesting something new would be difficult. So, but specifically, if anybody has any, specifically those B and C's people have got, if they want specifically which verse and which form basically, so we can get the feedback from them. And the next thing is that shloka recitation form was, although I had committed last time that we'll submit the form, and based on that, it was supposed to be completed today, but we had some challenges in terms of, creating that form. And because specifically the challenge was with the size of the file, because where we are uploading, that place has the limit. So it has been restricted to 100 MB. And Shankpani Prabhu has also shared a tool with which you can reduce if in case your video file is too big. But this has to be submitted by 21st April. And apart from that, we have the open book exam that, that file was shared earlier by Rasasindhu Prabhu, I believe, where the one set of questions was, closed book questions. Let me see the names. What was the file names? 1 minute.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, one request, it may be a good idea to share those two
Files again?
files again,
Okay.
so that devotees can refer to that.
Okay.
I'll share it to Prabhu.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So that file name, I think, was essay, like NOI essay and NOI question book, question bank, sorry. So NOI essay is an open book questionnaire. So there are 3 questions need to be written. One is, let me just hold on, I can share on the screen if possible, just for the sake of. Can you see the screen? Nectar of Instruction short essays.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, so this is the open book question paper. So here there are 2 questions need to be done from the first set of 6 questions, and it can be any 2 questions of your choice. And this has to be between 1.5 to 3x4 page, which is 300 to 400 words, as mentioned here. And this need to be done 2 questions from this and 1 question from the next set of 2 questions. And this is 1.5 page one, this thing. And as you can see, the questions are not very straightforward based from the book. It is to be more whatever we read and, in line with whatever our understanding is about the Nectar Instruction teachings. So it may be a little tricky and it may require some time. So, so I request everybody to start working on this. And we are working on the logistics. I'm not sure if we, at least we need to create the forms to submit the file as a file, or it can be as a GIF files also. So we'll release the form. Maybe it may take some time, but you please work on that. And this has to be submitted by 28th of April, this open book exam. And as of now, the plan for the dates for closed book exam is 8th May. We are planning. I know there are some challenges because we had originally planned the offline exam, which would be happening except those devotees who are not in town. Everybody else is supposed to come in temple and write it. So we'll wait for the situation for another maybe a week or so, and then we'll take a call that it has to be fully online, or those devotees who are willing to come on their own, they can come. But again, situation doesn't look very conducive, seeing the corona situation. So I see a lot of challenge there of, I don't think many devotees will be willing to come and write exam. And online also has its own challenges because that team has, even in US, they conduct in the specific centers, and devotees are requested to go to centers and then write papers, irrespective of, they have not conducted online in the sense with through Google Forms and all that. So it would be something endeavor which we have to, as a team, we'll have to do. So that we'll take a call within a week. But keep that in mind. As of now, the dates are these ones, 28th and 8th. 28th April for open book exam submission, and for 8th May for closed book exam. And let me share, I think Sindhu Prabhu has already told he will do. But there is a question bank which was shared earlier. There are a set of 33 questions. 90% of questions will be from this, except one or two which may be externally, which we'd have to write based on our understanding. Except that, all the questions would be from this 33 questions, set of 33. Among these 33 questions, it will be, the question paper will be for 2.5 hours. And as my understanding is 8 to 10 questions, which will be like 5-6 sentences questions, and one question would be again a little bit essay question, which will be a little bigger, which is expected to be written a little bit bigger, maybe 1.5 page to 2 page, as the open book. This thing is there. So this is what I understand as of now.
Prabhuji, out of this 33 questions,
yes,
how many questions are going to be asked?
There would be 10 to 12 questions, Prabhuji.
Totally. And that 10 to 12 questions will include that one big question.
Yes, one essay type questions. Yeah. And there may be, okay, I was being informed that there may be 3 questions from homework assignments as well.
Okay.
So we all have homework assignments.
Prabhu,
so you can just look at
Prabhu,
them.
I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Prabhu, so the file which was the essay question book that was there, that will be from that. Already there are 2 questions there, right? Like, I mean, 2 major not questions, some things to write about.
So the NOI essay type question bank, Shamkun Prabhu, in that there are 2 sections, and that is for open book.
Correct.
So in that, out of the first 6 questions, we have to answer 2.
Correct.
And the next set of 2 questions, we have to answer 1. So that is the 3 questions
Correct.
which we have to answer in the open book exam. So this question bank, which has been put up now up on the screen, is for the closed book examination. Out of the 33 questions, we will get 8 to 10 questions, including 1 essay type question. So Premdatta Prabhu, I rephrased it.
Correct.
Is my understanding?
But this essay type, the closed book essay type, that will come. Is there a question bank for that essay type from the closed book one, or that is?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, Premdatta Prabhu.
Oh, so that question is a question bank. That 33 questions are the question bank. The questions will be from that only.
Even that essay type question will be one of the 33 questions.
Yes.
Prabhu. Okay.
Yes.
Sham Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Are these dates fixed, Prabhu? or it is very close, it seems.
Yeah, bro. Actually speaking, there was a request for doing it within 1 week of the, and that's what I think that's the guidelines from Bhakti Shastri, this thing. So we have requested for providing us at least 2 weeks.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can you please come up with the dates again?
I know, Prabhu, for you, I don't know, there need to be some special arrangement, I guess, right? Maybe that we can discuss offline.
Okay.
I can understand why you are asking this. We can't expect you 1 day before to write question. So it's okay.
Thank you.
So just to repeat, yeah, 28th to submit the open book, which is that these 3 questions from the essay, and then 8th May for closed book exam.
Maybe that is the biggest test for Sumitra Gopal, Prabhu.
He has to give a bigger test than this. So
Yes.
okay, so I think that was. So maybe as more and more clarity is there, we'll move towards it. So if any other questions there regarding exam, I have not answered or I'm not aware, please let me know. I will just try to get the answers. So
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Hare Krishna. Otherwise, we'll wind up today's session. This is Sindhu Prabhu. You
I
have
think
some
everybody is
question.
shocked.
It's a personal question. I'll ask you separately, Prabhu. Or maybe I can ask a lot of trophies behind you, Prabhu. It's all because of the Bhakti Shastri exams, or
That is all my son's trophies. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Have a blissful Saturday and Sunday. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.